what I was told right at the start was that there was a vibrational change coming that was going to act like basically an alarm clock to a comatose, sleeping humanity. And I was going to see a tremendous shift in awareness in my lifetime. And the other thing that I was told it was going to do was bring to the surface all that had been hidden from us. And of course, 21 years ago, there's absolutely no evidence of that at all. But look now. I mean, what do we know that we didn't know 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a year ago?
Right.
You know, this is breaking. And where I'm going with this in terms of current events is in many areas, in wars, in economic collapse, in manufactured geological events. Not that necessarily all are, but some definitely are. And they are throwing everything they can at us, with more to come, to try to get us into a state of constant anxiety, constant fear, constantly worried about what's going to happen next. And what that does, it pulls you into a density. It pulls you into a more dense vibrational, energetic state, consciousness state, and thus makes it more difficult to tune in, to sync with these, what I call truth vibrations, which is basically another information construct that's coming in to replace the old one. We're at the cusp of it. And some people are still tuning into the old information construct on which the whole control system is based and all the enslavement of humanity is based. But others are opening their minds. It's literally that, opening your mind to a greater vibrational state or reality. And then they are starting to tune in to this incoming information construct that's coming in to replace the old one. And therefore, we are seeing this quite demonstrable fork in the road in terms of human perception, where you've got more people are awakening and seeing what they couldn't see before and saying, why couldn't I see it? It's so obvious. Well, because you weren't in that state of consciousness before. And then you've got still the mass of humanity at the moment that is still locked into this the construct, the information construct that we've been dealing with through this last period. And of course, they therefore are caught in basically five sense reality overwhelmingly, and therefore are open much more to the manipulation of that reality, because they're in this world and of it when they're in that mental emotional state.
Right.
Whereas when you start to awaken, your point of observation starts to move, and you're looking literally from the top of the hill, if you like, or symbolically from the top of the hill, instead of actually being in amongst it. And that being the only information that you are receiving to try to get a fix on who you are, where you are, and what's going on in the world. Which is why when people do open their minds and flow with this, they say, why couldn't I see it before? It was so obvious. So the Chinese say, may you live in interesting times. Well, God, they don't have to wish us that, because we do. And, the next few years are going to be extremely challenging and wonderful in so many ways, as these different realities kind of affect people in different ways. But it's not a time for the faint-hearted, mate. That's for sure.
That is for sure. And if you're a newcomer into many of the topics that you've been talking about throughout the years, David, and that we bring up in the program, then it's quite a lot to process. It must be kind of a ride, and there's certainly more information now out there, 2011, than it was in the early days of the internet, or even 5 years ago. In that sense, there's so many websites, so much information out there, and I mean, do you think there is a good way of coping with this then? Because, as you said, David, a lot is being thrown at us, and this is considered in many regards to be an information war as well, a war of of how we perceive the world, pretty much as well. So there's a lot of, mud thrown around, a lot of crap thrown around within this, field as well, and the alternative and things that are out there on the web and fake news stories and everything else. So should we be dragged along too much into it, or do you feel that the vibrational changes that you mentioned earlier, those are at the end of the day, kind of the key to align yourself according to?
Well, they are the key, because they're changing the information construct, therefore changing the reality. But you still got to tune into them, because there are alternative realities there still in this cusp, this point of transformation. It's not something that's going to happen on one day, in one month in 2012. This is a process where this new information energetic construct is coming in. But if it came in one fell swoop at the level that it will eventually be, then people would basically get fried, go crazy.
Yeah.
So, back in 1990 or 91 it was, when I had my experience in the stone circle in Peru, when I was hit by an energy for about an hour or more. For 3 months after that, it's very famous in this country, if you'd asked me my name, I wouldn't have been able to tell you without checking. It was so powerful that it was almost you're almost on the point of going beyond sane, if you like, because it was like so many keys on the computer symbolically were being tapped, so much was being downloaded that the physical forms still got to cope with that. And so this is a process where it's getting more and more powerful, therefore affecting more and more people, because the more powerful it gets, the more it's going to eat away at the density, what I call the bubbles that so many people live in, where they're operating on such a small area of their multi-level infinite awareness that basically, as I said earlier, the five senses is their foundation for how they see everything. And of course, once you're in that state, then where do the five senses look for information to get a fix on who they are, where they are, and what's going on in the world? They look out into the media, out into the education system, out into mainstream science and all that stuff. So once they're in that bubble state and not in a conscious connection, or even an intuitive connection to higher levels of themselves, well, then they become easily programmable. And this is why the control system, Henrik, is now seeking to throw everything, because it knows it's got a job on now, because people are waking up in more and more numbers and seeing it. And you're right, there is so much disinformation being thrown around to try to create diversions and cul-de-sacs for people, even within this whole area of researching the conspiracy and all the rest of it. Sure. And it's like someone said once, they stood in the library at Oxford University, which has kind of unbelievable number of books. And he said, no one could read more than a fraction of these books in a lifetime. The trick is reading the right ones.
That's right. Yeah.
And in terms of this information we're talking about, it's easy to manipulate for many people the intellect, if you like. It can give you names, dates, places, and sound credible, but it can be total disinformation. In fact, as you well know, the best disinformation is not 100% untruth, because that's much more easy to see through. It's like 70, 80% true, and then the spin of the 20%, which takes you off the trail. And so it's the intuition, I would say, that we need to be pulling in, that level of us that's connected to that symbolic part of us on top of the hill looking down. The intuition where you, I know it sounds right, but does it feel right? What do you feel about this? What does your heart say? And I've gone through the last 21 years filtering information like that. One guy said to me once, he said, "You've quoted a disinformer in your book, but you've only quoted the bit that's true. How do you do that?" I said, "Well, I don't know. That felt right. What the other bit didn't feel right."
Mm-hmm.
And this is the great lost genius of humanity that's been closed down because we have been manipulated into the intellect, the left side of the brain overwhelmingly, which sees everything as apart from everything else. It wants structure. It's about language, and it's ludicrous often version of logic. Whereas when you're in that state, you're easily manipulatable by information given you through the media and repeated by your peers and all the people around you. So you accept a version of reality that's not the right one, but it's one that's you've accepted because it sounds right. Well, they wouldn't do that. Well, no, it must be like that. The scientists say so, and all that stuff. Whereas when you go with your intuition, you're not bothered how many letters some guy's got after his name in some university or some science buddy institution. If it don't feel right to you, you ain't going to accept it.
Yeah.
And this is the thing I think we really got to start honing and making more and more sensitive our ability to feel when something feels good. And therefore, this feels right to me. And when it says, "Ooh, no, it might sound right," all the I's might be dotted, the T's crossed, and it might be beautifully set out, and he might seem to see what he's talking about, but it don't feel right to me. And this is the way we can get through this disinformation and these diversions that are put before us.
Absolutely, and it's information. It can be a high as well. It can be kind of a buzz for people, something to occupy, almost a form of entertainment as well. And beyond that, of course, we have all truths are not going to be documented, and vice versa. Just because something is documented doesn't mean it's the truth there either. Things can be forged and faked and what have you. So I think you're right, David. You have to walk your own path, follow your own heart, and at the end of the day, no one else can tell you what that true path is. It has to be up to you, and it has to be up to everybody out there. And just as long as people do that, I don't see any problems with that or reason to complain even on anybody else. They're free to choose as they go about their lives, David.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things about that, Henrik. First of all, you're right in this sense about the way people are treating some of this information, or many people are treating some of this information, and that is, it's like a hobby. In a sense, it's an add-on to your life, and you go onto forums and I'm not saying having a go at forums. There's a lot of good information that's exchanged, but you go onto forums and you can say this and say that. Oh no, I think this. Oh no, you're an idiot. I know more than you, and all this stuff, and you can read the information, and if that's as far as it goes, then all we are doing is, instead of having the prison built around us without us seeing it, now we're seeing it. And instead of just ignoring it because it couldn't be happening, now we're saying, "Oh, look, see what they're doing now. I bet they do this next," and all this stuff. That's just fine. It's a step forward. We've seen it. The question is then, what do we do about it? It just sitting on a forum, exchanging views on a thing every day, is that as much as we're going to do, or are we going to get involved? Has it stopped going to be a hobby and start to be the focus of our lives? Because we're at a point now where this control system has moved on to the point where it is really impacting on the most basic human freedoms, and it's on the cusp in many areas, not least economic, where it wants to push beyond that into the realms that we've been talking about all these years of the global fascist dictatorship. Now, we've moved on greatly, like I say, because so many more people can see it, at least levels of it. But to just watch it and commentate on it and watch oh, look, they put another bar up there. Oh, God, another bar in there. Come on, look, Ethel. I mean, come on. We've got to do more than that. Yeah. And another thing we need to do, which comes from the point you were making, Henrik, is if we are going to understand what we're dealing with, and what is actually happening around us, we have got to suspend the limitations of what we perceive as possible. We need to appreciate that humanity in this period that we call known human history has been in an incredibly suppressed state mentally, and in ways that are just beyond what most people would think was possible. But because we've been in that suppressed state, what we perceive to be the cutting edge of possibility is not, stands back in amazement, the cutting edge of possibility. And if we are going to make judgments on what is happening on the basis of what we believe is possible, i.e., the cutting edge of human possibility in the public arena is where the cutting edge is, then we are going to get nowhere near what is actually happening, because we have been in a suppressed state, and then that which has been manipulating us is light years ahead in terms of its technological know-how. And therefore, when I say things, for instance, I think this is going on, that's going on, you'll get people understandably saying, that's ludicrous, that's not possible. No, it's not possible for humans at this point, but it is possible. We have lived in such a tiny bubble of potential that we have no idea of the technological, the manipulation of our sense of reality, what it's possible to do, create, all the rest of it. That is actually not only possible, Henrik, it's going on around us. Yeah. And it's like, a kind of a sheep runs into a field and says, hey, guys, I've sussed it. This is going on, that's going on, that's going on, that's going on. And they, from the point of view of the field, they'd say, that's impossible. You're crazy. And by the way, you're getting on our nerves because we don't want to hear this stuff.
That's right.
And yet, a little way down the road, when the sheep's saying, look, they're going to bring this lorry, they're going to bring this truck, they're going to take us away to the slaughter. Oh, don't be crazy. They'd never do that. Anyway, it's not possible. And then the truck arrives. And they're in the back of the truck going, he was right, wasn't he? Oh my God, it's too bloody late now. And so we have to open our minds to, as Socrates is supposed to have said in ancient Greece, wisdom is knowing how little we know.
That's right. Yeah.
And let the information and our intuition be our guide, and not the great firewalls of preconceived idea, because we are going to have some real shocks in the next few years when we realize the scale of the control and how it doesn't end with Illuminati bloodlines and secret societies and Freemasons. They are still at the play out level of this. They're not the origin of this control system. They are players out of it, representatives of it. And when you look, Henrik, at all these things that are happening, and what I do is connect the dots, but if you look at the individual dots alone, you've got people who are focusing and researching on the additives in food, additives in water, HAARP manipulating the weather and manipulating earthquakes, etc. You've got people looking at the manipulation of the banking system. You've got people looking at engineered wars. You've got people looking at the pharmaceutical conspiracy, the vaccine conspiracy, all these things, looking at the manipulation of politics. On and on and on it goes. And that it's all happening in this coordinated way. Do we really believe that that's being orchestrated by men in dark suits and a few women sitting round a table discussing what do we do next? And this has been this conspiracy, this unfolding conspiracy, projects decades and more forward. This is why some people who have had access to the conspiracy, or at least they had information access to it, as on the inside, have been able over the years, like Aldous Huxley and Brave New World, etc., to write these prophetic novels, which have shown now to. How did he know that? Because he had access to the projected agenda, and we are going to find that. We as a human race have not only been suppressed, but our reality has been manipulated on a massive scale. The moon's involved, and I have absolutely no doubt that Saturn's involved, and that there were incredible, not millions of years ago, far more recently, incredible events in this solar system that I call in my books the schism, where the planets, as we see them now, were not always where they are now. And absolutely, they weren't there that long ago. And the story that is going to come out of how there is that we are in a universe that is like the cosmic internet, the wireless internet, whereby if you're in a place where the wireless internet is, look around you, where is it? You can't see it. But you get a computer and tune it into the wireless internet, and you, on your screen, suddenly have access to a whole collective reality that people in America, Sweden, South Africa, England, Asia, almost anywhere apart from places like China, can access the same collective reality. And yet, a few seconds ago, before you pressed enter, where was it? Now it's on your screen. And what I like very much is this whole area of research regarding the electric universe. Yeah. And on one level, it is electrical. Of course, we have this electrical level of the universe, which is a massive kind of revelation of understanding, in my view. And we have electrical activity in the brain. We have electrical activity in the body in general, electrical activity in the heart. And we are interacting with this cosmic internet, this electrical universe, although there's other levels, vibrational levels and digital levels, but let's talk about the electrical level. And therefore, when that electrical level, which is information, when that changes, our reality changes. And what we are now experiencing in this information transformation that I'm talking about is the information in that wireless internet is changing, in that cosmic internet, as I would call it. And but this brings us to something else. If you're dealing with an information construct, which we are interacting with and bringing through the electrical to the holographic, which is the world we think is physical but isn't, then what can you do with computer systems? You can hack into them. Look at the situation in China. There's vast chunks of the internet, the World Wide Web, that Chinese people cannot access because the system has been firewalled off, so they can't get it onto their screen. What I'm saying is that exactly that has happened on a massive scale, right? Whereby our ability to access great chunks of the information available in this cosmic internet has been firewalled off. And I'm absolutely convinced that all this, see, when you start to put the dots together, things start to make sense. Why are there so many stories, Henrik, among the ancient peoples about genetic manipulation, right? Genetic manipulation of humanity. And what do you do if well, let's take this. What do they do with the computer system in China? They hack into it and they change it so it won't read and access great chunks of the internet. Well, if you look at genetics, you might see cells and all that stuff. But what you're looking at, basically, with what I call the physical body, the holographic body, what I call the body computer, the biological body computer, you're looking at a system which is reading, like a computer, information.
The code, yeah.
And if you then genetically manipulate it, you are manipulating it, if you know what you're doing, to firewall off great chunks of its ability to read the reality to the extent that it should. And I have, I must say, you look at the situation with DNA, where 95 to 97% of DNA, they call junk DNA because they don't know what it does. And then you look at the fact that we use a fraction of our brain's capacity. Now, in some ways, some of that junk DNA, I'm sure, is actually interacting with other levels of reality beyond science's ability to measure it. Same with the brain, but I'm sure that some of it has actually been switched off. And it's like putting humans in a situation where they're intelligent enough to serve the hidden masters, but not intelligent enough in consciousness terms to realize that that's what they're doing. And this is why this information vibrational change is awakening people to be able now more and more to actually cope with the concept that that's what's going on. And, I'm sure that Saturn is very much a massive broadcasting operation. And it's, I think, in league with what's coming out of the moon, and probably other things too, we don't know about yet, has created what I call this moon matrix, which is like hacking into the system so that we do not either receive or decode a range of information that we would normally do so, or that would give us a completely different view and perception of reality. And if people think that's kind of far-fetched, that could happen. I was reading a really mainstream scientific magazine in Britain a few months ago called The New Scientist. And it was saying that since the American television system switched from analog to digital, scientists are in a race against time before those analog frequencies are sold over to mobile phones and all the rest of it they do, to see areas of the universe, whole galaxies that they couldn't see. And this was the quote in the magazine: prior to the switchover, naturally occurring radio waves at frequencies between 700 and 800 megahertz were obscured by analog TV signals, preventing astronomers from investigating the universe using this band.
That's right.
The freeing up of this bandwidth is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see galaxies in this range. So they, i.e. we too, couldn't see whole galaxies because people were watching the television, and then you take that forward into the realms of technological possibility that I'm talking about in terms of what these ultimate manipulators have, and you start to see that what I've just described about the firewalling off and the hacking into the information construct to stop us getting access to vast amounts of it that we would, is perfectly feasible. This is another thing, Henrik, that I saw in a mainstream magazine. Said this: the scientists have conceived of a space-time cloak which manipulates light and, in essence, conceals whole events from a viewer. The theory is based on censoring the flow of events which we perceive as a stream of light particles, also called photons, that strike the retina. By exploiting a characteristic of fiber optics remember, I'm talking about technology here that's available to humans. By exploiting a characteristic of fiber optics, the flow of photons can be slowed, events edited out, and stitched back together, say the team from Imperial College London and Salford University, Northwest England. Quote, a safecracker would be able for a brief time to enter a scene, open the safe, remove its contents, close the door, and exit the scene, while the record of a surveillance camera apparently showed that the safe door was closed the whole time, according to their paper. These so-called metamaterials, whose nanometric surface interferes with light at specific wavelengths, as a result, light deviates around an object, making it invisible, or more accurately, invisible in specific colors of the light spectrum. Now, you take this manipulation of reality into the realms, Henrik, of the capabilities that I'm talking about, and, you know, putting people into what I call this moon matrix or this moon Saturn matrix is perfectly feasible. And the flow of my life over the last 18 months has certainly been putting that information before me.
See, there's so many interesting points in that, but that whole idea of just bending light, that alone, what we could accomplish now. Think if we do have an elite that is 50, 100, 500 years ahead of us when it comes to technology. We have no idea what they're capable of. It takes things into a totally different realm. But one thing I want to get to here, obviously, David, in some more detail, if we can, is about the moon and how you see that is, you know, how you came into some of that information as well. And we can try to tap into Saturn here, because as far as I know, you do not write that much about Saturn in your latest book, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, but in chapter 19, 17, and even 13, you've collected some of the most fascinating research, laying out various, you know, anomalies related to the moon, suggesting that it is something that we might not think it is. Maybe you can just give us some of these little tidbits, David, and also let us know how did you get on that trail? What made you look at the moon specifically?
Well, to explain that, Henrik, I just got to briefly explain how I've worked all these years. When I went to the Psychic in 1990 as a TV presenter and national spokesman of the Green Party in England at the time, to be told that I was going to go out on this world stage and reveal great secrets, and I would eventually be world famous for doing this. I would write many books, and I would face enormous opposition, but, quote, they would always be there to protect me, and all that stuff I've written about before. One of the key things right from that first meeting with the Psychic, I only saw about 2 or 3 times. It said, one of the things that was said to me was, knowledge will be put into his mind, and at other times he will be led to knowledge. Now, from that moment, there has been a recurring sequence in my life for 2 decades. And that is that in the early days, when I was still kind of what's going on, I would be given knowledge through incredible synchronicity of things coming into my life, experiences, meeting people, coming across books, coming across this document or whatever, having this experience. But after a very few short years of that, this other sequence kicked in. And that is, first of all, I get this, if you like, insight out of nowhere. And from that moment, information, like physical information, if you like, regarding that subject starts coming into my life. Mm-hmm. And this happened with the moon, because when I started out to write Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, I was not intending to write anything about the moon. And I came in one morning, must be about 18 months ago now. And I sat down in this chair, and the energy in the room changed. And of course, after 20 years, you get to know the sequence. The energy, the atmosphere changed. And I thought, here we go. And clear as anything, through my mind, it just said, the moon's not real. The moon's not what you think it is. And I thought, all right then. Because I've been through this sequence so many times, it's like, okay, well, we'll go with this and see where it goes. Mm-hmm. So I put in a few key words into a search engine, and immediately up before me came a book called Who Built the Moon
Yep.
by Christopher Knight and Alan Butler. So I thought, well, let's make a start. I'll read that. So I sent for it, read it very quickly, and it absolutely was pointing in the direction of what I'd just come through my mind, if you like. And you know what it's like? It very much going back to what I've just been talking about. When you come into this world, you tend to accept that what is here is how it is. This is how things are, mate. This is one reason why, we, the generations who've seen a different world to this one, are very, very important and have a very great responsibility, because we, to some extent, have the ability to see how things were, to how they've become. People being born into the world now, all this control and stuff, it's life. This is how it is.
Yeah.
This is why it's fantastic that so many young people, despite that, have seen through it. But the classic is the moon. The moon comes up. It goes through its sequence every month. And, well, it's the moon, mate. Oh, it's the full moon tonight, look. But when you start asking questions, whoa, I didn't know that. And first of all, the mathematics between the moon, the sun, and the earth, as documented in this book, Who Built the Moon, are fantastic. As they say in the book, the maths involved in the Earth, Moon, Sun system is nothing less than staggering, and the moon was placed there with the accuracy of the proverbial Swiss watchmaker. And just a few weeks ago, I watched a mainstream scientific program on the BBC. I think it was it wasn't a strand, it was a one-off. Do we really need the moon? And this scientist, mainstream scientist, goes on and on about how it's perfectly positioned for its effect on the earth to give us the kind of world we live in. But then she says, but that it is now perfectly placed to sustain life is pure luck, a cosmic coincidence.
Yeah, right.
Right. So then you realize when you start looking at the moon with an open mind, let the information be the guide. As they say in the book, the moon is bigger than it should be. It's apparently older than it should be, much lighter in mass than it should be. It occupies an unlikely orbit, and so extraordinary that all existing explanations for its presence are fraught with difficulties, and none of them could be considered remotely watertight. Because, again, scientific fact, if you play it back, becomes scientific theory that through repetition has been accepted as fact. So you say, well, how does science say the moon was created? Well, they say the moon was created by a kind of Mars-type planet hitting the Earth in its formation period, and a great chunk coming off and becoming the moon, called the Wack theory. When that didn't follow through in terms of the physics and the logic of it, they came up with a double Wack theory, where the planet smacked into the Earth and then came back and gave it another smack. And you say, you don't know, do you? That's the fact. Never mind that all scientists say. Well, scientists say a lot of things that have been proved wrong. And then you start looking at the size of it. I mean, it's bigger than Pluto.
There's nothing in our solar system that compares when it comes to satellites. It's a quarter of the size in diameter of the Earth. It's incredible, actually.
2,160 miles in diameter, and some scientists talk about a twin planetary system, not even a planet moon system.
Right.
And then you start looking at what some scientists have said when they've looked at the moon, like a guy called Erwin Shapiro from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Great quote. He says the best explanation for the moon is observational error. The moon doesn't exist. And NASA scientists said it seems easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than its existence. And then you start looking at the way the moon has reacted when it's been specifically hit by NASA after they put seismometers up there. And they say that it rang like a bell.
That's right.
And when you look at some of the quotes that they're saying about the moon, you think, well, where are you? Why aren't we pursuing this? Because they don't want us to know that. When they hit it again with an even bigger smack later, it reacted like a gong, according to NASA scientists, the moon. And according to Who Built the Moon, Alan Butler, one of the authors, was told by a guy called Ken Johnson, supervisor of the Data and Photo Control Department during the Apollo missions, that when it was hit the second time, much more powerfully, the moon not only rang like a bell, but the whole moon wobbled in such a precise way that, quote, it was almost as though it had gigantic hydraulic damper struts inside it, you know.
And this must be from the L-Cross mission back in 2009, I think.
Well, they've been playing this out over many years and decades, and you know, as you well know, in around 1970, two scientists from the Soviet Academy of Sciences wrote a detailed article saying that they thought the moon was a gigantic spaceship, and when you also look at what some of the scientists have said with regard to why it vibrates and reverberates as it does and rings like a bell, is the idea that it might be hollow. A NASA scientist, Gordon MacDonald, said in the early 1960s, that far back, it would seem that the moon is more like a hollow than an homogeneous sphere. And another one, Sean Solomon, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, he said that from the evidence that they'd gathered at that time, it indicated the frightening possibility that the moon may be hollow. And as Carl Sagan, the great cosmologist, said, a natural satellite cannot be a hollow object. And for me, you know, again, when you can go on the internet, on YouTube, and see people like Sergeant Carl Wolf speaking from his experiences when he was a photographic engineer at the Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, of course, CIA, where he talks at the National Press Club, was it in Washington some few years ago, where he's and others are telling of their experiences inside the system, inside the game, if you like, of how they saw things that the public's never been told about. And of course, Sergeant Carl Wolf talked about the fact that he went over to an area in the Langley Air Force Base where he needed to do some repair work. And he was in the area where they were putting together what he called mosaics, you know, like pictures from different passes of the moon, over the moon, and then they were putting them together to make a whole picture. And he said that the guy over there showed him pictures and said, we found a base on the moon. He said, I saw the base on the moon and many other strange structures, like incredibly high, almost like towers, obelisk-like towers and domes and what have you. And other people talked at that event in Washington about how NASA was airbrushing out these things before pictures were released to the public. And it's very clear that there's a lot of activity on the surface of the moon. But what I'm saying, Henrik, is that's one aspect of it, yes. But what's the real key is inside the moon. Because inside the moon is where it's all going on. Of course, there are things on the surface. Inside is where it's going on. And
do you believe then that sorry, David.
Go ahead, mate.
Do you believe that it's are we talking about a technology being, you know, broadcasted, emanated from the moon to planet Earth, or how do you perceive that to?
Yes, absolutely that. Yes, and I think it's connected in that to Saturn. And what I found interesting was a year after this book came out, where I said that the moon was broadcasting a frequency field, which was having two effects. Part of it was blocking information we would normally decode, and the other thing it was doing was giving us information to create a false reality. You know, in the Matrix movie, if you change, you know, when Morpheus is explaining the facts of the Matrix to Neo for the first time. If you take the quote and just put moon inside it, you pretty much got where I'm going with this, because the quote was, the Matrix, what I say, the moon matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go out to work or when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. And that's what I'm saying this moon matrix is doing. And like I say, what I found interesting was when I had obviously written the book, it had come out, and just like, I think it was like 2 months ago, it's been out about 9 months now, I got this email from a lady, I think she was in Brazil, and she said, have you read a book called Earth by Barbara Marciniak? Now, I met Barbara Marciniak back in the 1990s. She became well known in that kind of arena for channeling information from what was said to be a Pleiadian source or a Pleiadian consciousness. So that's what was said. And she produced some books. An excellent one, I thought, called Bringers of the Dawn. But the other one, called Earth, I'd not read, even though, funnily enough, I had it on my bookshelf. So what she said was, here's some page numbers. I've just read your book, Human Race Get Off Your Knees. Here's some page numbers. You know, you'll be interested to read this. And this is what those page numbers said. It was a channeled book, and you know, basically explaining what was going on. And basically, it was about how a group of people, a large group of people, have come at this time to help make the change and help ease out this control system. Well, this is what it said. The moon is a very powerful electromagnetic computer. The energy from the moon has been beaming electromagnetic frequencies onto the Earth for eons now to maintain the two-stranded DNA. The moon is a satellite that was constructed. It was anchored outside Earth's atmosphere as a mediating and monitoring device, a supercomputer or eye in the sky. Earth must be owned by those who dwell there. However, it is not. You have outside gods, creator energies, who prevent you as a species from having free reign with your kundalini, because the potential of our energy field. The influence of the moon as a main satellite computer affects all of the Earth. The moon's programs have for eons been of great limitation toward human beings. They are repetitive cycles that the moon creates to which you respond. The moon matrix. And when I read that, I mean, it's another thing that happens in this sequence of events, Henrik, in my life in the last 21 years. When you've gone with something, often when you've gone with it, and you know, you say, I'm going with this, it feels right to me, I feel this is right, then something will happen often that kind of gives you a confirmation. Yeah. Just says, yeah, see, look, it is right. And that's what I kind of hit me when I read that, because what I've just read from that book is, as you will know, it's in what I'm saying in my book. And it was such a powerful kind of confirmation for me that we're going in the right direction here. Not that everything is 100% right. We're trying to uncover something doesn't want to be uncovered. I mean, crikey. But the theme, the direction we're going here, I'm absolutely convinced is spot on.
So there's a number of things here that I want to, address and talk with you about. One thing we could just, I guess, what your theory is or what you feel when it comes to this, because the Earth is estimated, to be around 4.6 or so billion years, and then some of the moon rocks brought back, by Apollo, were dated around 5.3 billion years old. So what do you think has happened here? One theory I've heard is that the moon might have actually been sort of towed into place. Another theory is that it might have been built on the spot, like the Death Star or something like that. But where do you stand on that page?
Well, my jury's out on that. My inclination is it's a hollowed-out planetoid. But we've got to kind of, I think, leave that on the boiling pot, because we got to first understand where the level of capability is that we're actually dealing with. You know, I mean, what are these people capable of? I mean, to hollow out a bloody planetoid, I mean, that's fantastic enough.
Sure.
Construct it from scratch, it's even more fantastic. But I tell you what, it's interesting on that hollowing out, you know, because the Soviet scientists who wrote that article saying they believed it was a hollow. They talked about it being hollowed out planetoid, and they explain. I quote in great detail in the book, but they talk about the fact that they say it was hollowed out, and it's interesting. People like a guy called Dr. D.L. Anderson, professor of geophysics and director of the seismological laboratory at California Institute of Technology, actually said, because the way the moon's put together, the moon is made inside out, and interestingly. I then called my great friend in South Africa, Credo Mutwa, the nearly 90-year-old now Zulu shaman, who was initiated into this hidden knowledge like 50, 60 years ago. And I didn't say anything to him. I'd come by this point to the conclusion that what I'm saying is the way we're going with this. But I never told him any of this. I just called him. And I said, can you tell me any Zulu or African legends about the moon? And he said, yes, we say the moon is an egg. Now, of course, your anthropologists turn up from mainstream science. They go, they're primitive people. They think the moon's an egg. Well, actually, that's a bit more than that. The reason they say it's an egg, interestingly, is they say it's been hollowed out. And then he told me one of the Zulu legends about the moon. And he said that the legends say that the moon was brought here hundreds of generations ago by two brothers, Wawani and Umpanku, who were leaders of the Chitahuri. Now, the Chitahuri is the Zulu name for the reptilians, the children of the serpent. And he said that the two brothers, Wawani and Mpanku, were known as the Water Brothers and had scaly skin like a fish. The legends say that Wawani and Mpanku stole the moon in the form of an egg from the great fire dragon and emptied out the yolk until it was hollow. They then rolled the moon across the sky to the earth and caused great cataclysmic events on the earth when it arrived. And so you look at that, and I, of course, I'm sitting here. I'm thinking, "Whoa!" You know, when you're looking at, I find it very compelling, Henrik, when you look at these ancient legends and these myths, and then you look at the science that we know anyway, and they start to sync. And there are so many anomalies with regarding the moon. It's too big, too far out to be a natural satellite of the Earth, so they tell us. Why the moon has very shallow craters, and it seems that the depth of the crater does not kind of sync with the size of the impact. And what these scientists were saying, these Soviet scientists, they said the moon had to be constructed to survive going through all the impacts and all the battering that it would obviously get. And he said that they reckon that there's an outer protection covering of about 2.5 miles, something like that, 2.5, 3 miles, something like that, they said in 1970, which is to absorb the initial impact. And then from that 2 miles, 3 miles, whatever it is, outer protection, there is then, they said, a 20-mile, in their estimation, solid, impregnable barrier. And the indication was that when the moon's hit by something, it impacts upon the immediate outer protection,
which is softer, so it kind of muffles the blow a bit, right?
Yeah, and then, but it can't get beyond this this 20-mile impregnable shield, and then inside that, there you have. And probably it was definitely on the surface and at other levels too. You have what's actually going on there, and the technology that's actually shooting out these various frequencies to block information and to give us information which we decode when it's a fake reality, a moon matrix. And it's something that we're going to have to look at, because the evidence is going to continue to come out that's going to make us look at this. I mean, when I was writing the book, Henrik, I turned on the television to see that NASA was bombing the moon. What's all that about? Oh, we want to see if it got water. How much did that cost to bomb the moon to see if it's got water? And then last August, I was with Craig Mutwa, funny enough, in South Africa, and there was a news story, a mainstream news story, where NASA said the moon is shrinking. They found these ridges all over it, which they say indicates that the surface is coming together. It's shrinking and causing the land to rise up in these ridges. There's so many things about the moon we don't know about, and I'm sure that we're going to have to really look at this seriously, at how we're being manipulated via the moon. In fact, have you ever seen that I'm sure you have, that American film called They Live?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Well, you see, for people that haven't, it's a story that came in the 1980s, but it was set about now, funnily enough, a bit in the future. And to cut a long story short, this guy came across some sunglasses that were specially designed so that when he put them on, he didn't see the world he saw without them. When he put them on and he looked at a news magazine, instead of seeing text and pictures, he just saw subliminal messages: stay asleep, obey authority. He looks around at the advertisements in the street that are saying, vacation in Jamaica or buy Coke or whatever. And he didn't see the adverts with the glasses on. He saw subliminal messages saying stay asleep, do as you're told, and all that stuff. And then when he goes through an area where there's people, he sees that most people are still human when he puts the glasses on, but some of them ain't, that look human when he hasn't got them on. Some of them are clearly not human. And the story goes on as he starts to understand what's happening, that the world has been taken over by these non-humans hiding behind human form, which is I've been writing about all these years. And they work out that actually the reason humans can't see them, and he can only see them with the glasses, is because, and it's all symbolic, I would suggest, there's a dish transmitting a frequency from the top of a television tower that is blocking the people's ability to see what these people really are. And what they do then is that they the story in the film, they stop the dish broadcasting, and suddenly people are sitting in bars, walking down the street, whatever, and suddenly the person next to them's not human anymore. They can see them because this frequency's been switched off. And that, Henrik, for me, really, really is a fantastically symbolic explanation of what is actually happening. And the thing is this is another key reason, mate, why they have to keep us in a low vibrational mental and emotional state of consciousness. It's because what they're broadcasting has a frequency, yes, but it has a frequency range. And if you open your mind and access levels of consciousness that are beyond that frequency, and this is what's happening with this awakening, its impact upon you is diluted and diluted until you go beyond it. And then not only is it not impacting on you like it was in terms of your sense of reality, you actually are aware, conscious enough to see that it's happening and what's going on.
Yeah.
And And we're going to have some amazing kind of revelations coming along in the next few years that are going to just reveal how deep this rabbit hole goes. Now, it's right, and I do it. It's right that we expose the 5 cents level of this conspiracy. Absolutely, I'm doing it all the time, as much as I can. The banking scams and the political scams and the engineered wars, etc. But if we hold it there, we leave it there, then we're only getting a fraction of what there is to know, because that's just, if you like, that's like the movie screen being played out, where we can see it, but it's being projected from somewhere else. And the moon, yes, Saturn, I'm absolutely convinced that is I very well be that the moon is a satellite, a transmitter, if you like, transmitter system for Saturn. I wouldn't rule that out. I'm not saying it is. I wouldn't rule it out. And it's interesting, isn't it, mate? Who's got all these moons?
Yeah,
Saturn.
exactly. Saturn.
Yeah. More than 60 in it. I was reading today, and I mean, so, you know, these are little bits of information, but they're eventually going to be added to, so that we can actually link these dots in an even more profound way. And where does it go from there? You know, when you're dealing with all possibility, where does it end? But we've come a long way in the areas that we're talking here about, Henrik. We've come a long way from it's a few people sitting around a table wanting to take over the world because they're just greedy. Those people do exist on the level that they operate at, but that's not where it's coming from.
Obviously, before we wrap things up here for the first hour, David, let's just briefly talk about your appearances up here in the Nordic countries. You're coming up to Copenhagen. You're coming up to Stockholm, May 8th. Our friend Peter Pettersson from anarchus.se is putting this one together as well. I was at the conference last year in Gothenburg, also put together by him. Really good one. And for people who want to have tickets, obviously, and more information about your lecture in Stockholm on May 8th, again, just go to anarchus.se. I will have this linked up on the website as well. But then you're coming to Copenhagen. Is that before or after Stockholm, David?
Yeah, if people go to my website as well, they'll get all the places I am, because I'm in a lot of places this year. First of all, I'm leaving in a couple of days. We're going to speak in Germany, in Bavaria. Hey, Bavaria!
How about that? We were there recently. Actually, it's a lovely place. You're not going to Ingolstadt, are you?
No, it's I've been there before to Berchtesgaden to look around that area, but. There's so many things have come out of Bavaria. Bavarian Illuminati, Henry Kissinger, the present Pope, Goldman and Sachs. Those families both came from that area, and so it's a very important place. Not least because, of course, it was the fiefdom of the Rothschilds, and that created the Rothschilds when they changed their name from Bauer to Rothschild, Red Shield. And so it's a very important place, Germany, and. Then I'm going to Rome the next weekend. I'm going to speak there, and then I'm coming to Stockholm.
Quite important city too in the scope of things. Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny the way the two have synced, because I don't select that. You know, people come to me and say, well, we'd like you to come and speak here, and I say, yeah, I'll do it, or no, I can't because I'm doing something else or whatever. But it's interesting that Bavaria and then Rome have synced like that, one weekend after another. Then I go up from Rome to Stockholm. Well, I haven't spoken for a long time. I like Stockholm. And then I'm going down to Copenhagen for the next weekend. And then I'm going to come back and write a book through the summer before heading to Australia and America and then Europe again.
Jesus, yeah. You are going at it, you know. And but well, I mean, hey, look at the following. Look at the amount of people, and look at even how the mainstream media is attaching your name to certain things now as well. You're getting recognition, I guess, not because the mainstream media is talking about you, but because of the fact that people out there are actually listening and interested in this material, David. That's excellent.
Yeah, for me, it's like, look at the world, you know. And I decided, Henrik, 21 years ago, that I was going for this. It felt right to me. I'm going for it. Some memory was saying, yes, this is what you're here to do. Go for it. And so, you know, this is my life. I don't have anything else in my life apart from my family, and who are grown up now anyway. And this is me. This is me 24/7. And so I'm doing everything that I can to get the information out, because it's a critical time, as you well know.
Absolutely.
Because we're in a situation now where, in many ways, it is an information situation, because information leads to being able to see things in a different way. And what the system wants is for its version of reality, its version of the limited human being, to be accepted, because that allows the few to control the many. And alongside all this information we're talking about, and the other stuff we talk about banking scams and engineered wars, the key to it all is humanity remembering who we are, that we are consciousness having an experience. We are not the experience. We are not our name or our job or our family history. We are consciousness having an experience. And when we start to see ourselves from that point of view, consciousness having an experience rather than being the experience, you're already starting to move your point of observation out of the five senses alone. Of course, we still have to stay there. That's what we came here to, we interact in the world with the world right through the five senses, but they're no longer the prison, because you're seeing a much bigger picture just by that switch of self-identity. And that is absolutely crucial. And that's what I'm banging out all the time, because it changed my life when I changed that self-identity of myself, and it changed anybody's life, because you're no longer little me anymore.
Absolutely correct. And I also want to say to our listeners out there, if you haven't been to any of David's lectures before, and if you're close to Bavaria or Rome or Stockholm or Copenhagen here a little bit later, do take the opportunity, because it's awesome, and David gets a great opportunity to present all of the information. You're still doing what is it, David? About 6 hours worth, or sometimes even more.
It's going up.
It's going up. Of course it is. Yeah.
No, it's about. I did an event in Los Angeles, which was unbelievable. I mean, it was such a privilege to do that about 3 weeks ago. 2,000 people. The audience were magnificent. The energy was incredible, and it was just a joy. I think I did the best part of 9 hours, so 8.5, 9 hours. I do it in 4 sections with about 1,300 illustrations, and I have to do that if I'm for me, if I'm going to travel a long way, and people are going to travel a long way to come and see me, then let's make a day of it.
That's true. That's true.
Let's connect as many dots as we can here. And because I'm a dot connector, of course, you have to talk about the subject and then connect it to this and then connect it to that. So it does take some time, but it's I love it. And Los Angeles was a new high for me. I mean, it was just the best thing I've been involved in,
wow.
because as these truth vibrations move and become more powerful and more influential, those that are tuning into them, and of course to come to an event like that you are, then the energy that's being generated by that group of people is just getting more and more and more powerful. It was just a wonderful experience for me that day.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. And again,